Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Kate Margetts, and I'm in charge of international actions at Minalogic. Minalogic is the innovation cluster for digital technologies in the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region in France. And our job is to create opportunities for our members to develop their R&D and to develop their business. So the Minalogic Business Meetings is our flagship event at Minalogic, and this is a key date in our calendar. And so the goal of this event is to put digital technology suppliers in contact with key buyers from all end markets, users of digital technologies from all over the world. So I see in the chat we have someone from California. Good morning or good night. So after 2 years of online editions of the MBM, due to COVID, which we've all experienced, we're super happy to be going back to a real life event. And so this year, the MBM is going to take place in a hybrid version. So we're going to have some participants still online and the majority of participants in real life in Grenoble on the 31st of May. And so the goal of this training session is to make sure that all participants are prepared as best as possible and really able to make the most out of their business meetings on the day of the MBM. And so this is why I'm delighted to welcome this morning Naida, who is going to be helping you guys and to give you some key hints and tips and some mistakes to avoid during your business meetings and to really make sure that you capitalize on this event to get the most out of it as possible. On Thursday and Friday this week, there's going to be the opportunity to have individual coaching sessions, so into small groups of 4 or 5 people. And the idea of those sessions is really to give you some key tips for yourself individually and to prepare and to better perfect your own pitch. So I'm going to let Nadia talk about that a little bit later as well. So just so you know a little bit of admin side, this session is recorded, so you can watch the replay later on, and we'll obviously send you the slides as well. You don't have access to your microphones, but you can ask all your questions in the chat, and Naida will stop every now and then to respond to some questions. So without further ado, I'll leave the floor to Naida. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a good session.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, everybody who was behind the scenes organizing this event. Good morning, everybody, and I'm very excited to be here. I want to use our time efficiently, effectively, but also give some space for questions. And so I will be going through the slides on a good pace. However, I will pause and ask if there are any questions or if there's something that you would like to have clarified, or if you're connecting it to an experience that you've had. This is something that I would love to hear from you as well. So please do put that into the chat, and then I can get to it at a pause moment. All right. So I'm going to get started just talking a little bit about what the objectives are for today. I'm going to be discussing the power of ethos, pathos, and logos, the 6 factors that do impact and convey impact your ability to convey a key message. Flash audience analysis, and the reason why I call it flash is that sometimes when the person is in front of you, although you may have done your homework, maybe they've sent a replacement, or maybe there's someone new who's arriving in addition to the person that you had already done your homework about. So this is the reason why I'm saying also flash audience analysis. Facilitating effective exchanges. And so many of you have already gone through one of these wonderful events and have had the experience of exchanging with individuals in a very time-constrained situation. However, I do want to add a few ideas and things that you can reflect on before and during those conversations, as well as a
Looks like we have a little technical problem. We've lost Naida for a second. Hopefully she'll be back soon. I hope it's temporary. That's why I turned the chat back on, because the camera back on, because I think we've lost Nadia rather than you guys losing signal. Hopefully she'll be back with us very quickly. Again, this is a good example of home office setup. Oh, looks like we're getting. Hey, we got you back.
I was here. I just didn't. I needed to click on the little buttons, so now I know where they are. Thank you. All right, so I will continue. And then in the day, at the end of the day, the idea is that I would like, or you would like, for them to remember you after the discussion, to remember the idea, the product, or the service that you're discussing with them, and then also want to know more and to meet you later. So these are kind of the end call to action that I'm going to be speaking about at the end of our session. Logos, ethos, pathos, the three elements of persuasive messaging. Now, maybe this is something that you've came across if you were in theater, or something that you might have come across if you were learning Latin. Logos, your logic, reason, and proof. To have that data with you, of course, to structure the speech so that it is clear, or to structure your ideas as you are speaking to the person in front of you and referencing studies, statistics, case studies, anything that you might be able to do to link. Now, I'm going to be going deeper into each one of these as we move forward, but I wanted to give the highlights of each. So logos, it is a lot of comparisons, giving analogies and metaphors. So even if it's something that hasn't been in the market for a very long time, you can compare it to something, or you can give a metaphor for it. Storytelling is also something that links to logos. And I'm going to go to pathos, because this is definitely where the emotions and the values, linking it to the values and beliefs of the individual, but also for the organization itself. So what are the values of the organization that this particular individual is representing? Or if they're representing themselves, what do they believe? What do they think? And of course, this requires a little bit of homework to be done in advance, but it does help you make that connection on an emotional level. So stories are very helpful, any quotes that you might have, and of course, vivid language. Now, vivid language also means being able to imagine something. And so that's also very helpful if you're able to construct a concept, provide, again, connections to metaphors and analogies, which helps you visualize an idea without having to actually see it. And then ethos is your credibility and the trust. That is built up in that very quick exchange, sometimes not like I like you, but that I can feel that you are confident about what you're talking about. I can feel that you know where you're going. I can feel that you, even if you have still remaining questions, are searching for those questions and are looking to make connections with individuals. And so that personal branding, the way in which you speak about yourself, and also representation of the product or service or innovation that you are going to be speaking about, is going to be a key element. That confidence in your delivery and your feeling is also very, very helpful. The other is the cite credible sources. And so if there's any quotes or references that you can give, then that's going to be very helpful in your process as well. All right, so I'm going to move to the next slide. Now, this is a full slide, but what I wanted to do was just to show this image to you, because you're going to be receiving the PDF of this document, and it looks like this. The PDF of the document actually has 2 pages to it. It has all of the text that are basically examples for each one of the logos, ethos, and pathos. But then at the second page, you will have it empty. And that gives you a worksheet. an opportunity to be able to think about what are all the facts, data, figures, or the kind of things that you might compare, similarity, things and stories or metaphors that you might be able to use, vision that you might also be able to present, to be able to explore a little bit further this idea. So I just wanted to share this with you, and you're going to be receiving this a little bit later in the presentation. So that's the ethos, pathos. And what I want to do now is move into the 6 factors that impact conveying your key message. I'm just going to start with number 1, which is sometimes your discussion might be too general. So it is really helpful if you can craft to the individual that is in front of you, because really it is about trying to figure out and to solve their issue or their problem, or to be able to address a concern that they have. So one of the things that I'd like to look at here on the left are any statistics that you might have, or any comparisons, again, and metaphors and stories that you might be able to tell. So to try and craft it as tightly to the individual as possible, or to their situation as possible. Another one is missing the stories. Remember that connection to the emotions. How will your product or service support their goals? Will it make their life easier? Is there something that you can say and stories that you can tell that also link it to addressing these kinds of questions? Here on the left, you'll see some statistics that support the benefits of a product. Now, sometimes you may not have benefits, but you can have projected ideas of what it could do. Or here, you might be able to use some statistics that come out of the industry or in the area of expertise where you're focused. Number 3 is speaking at them, not with them. And that's a big, big kind of thing that happens to some individuals, where you're so interested in promoting and talking about your innovation that you don't slow down enough to listen to the other individual. So the idea is to switch your focus from selling to solving. This is a term, is to thinking about solving their issue, or how can I might address something that is a concern that is on your plate. Now, if it's co-construction, which is that we're both co-developing something together, then it is also trying to figure out what are their goals and objectives, where are they trying to go, what are they trying to do, and how might what you are going to be presenting to them link to that goal and objective. So getting to know them, their business, or their reason for being is also another thing that helps with the connections as well. Forgetting to communicate your why. Now, this is when you say why, it is really your reason for being, or raison d'être. Why are you there, and what are you trying to solve? And so here you will first logic, and it'll tell you a little bit about why are we here. This is what we do. Also, what is this event for? Why do we put these together? The exact same type of language is something that you would want to share with the person in front of you. What is your why? Why do you exist? What are you trying to do? Sometimes it isn't exactly linked. It isn't exactly the term, your mission statement. It might be the product's mission statement, or the service, or the innovation idea of where we're trying to go with it. And so here you want to link to your why. And next, you don't sound confident. Now, that's a subjective thing. What does confidence sound like? Well, it sounds like you kind of already know what you're talking about. It sounds like you're comfortable in your own space and with the subject. You're comfortable with being in front of someone. And sometimes it's just kind of uncomfortable in the pressure of the 25 minutes, and we have to get through this conversation quite quickly. And so the remedy for that is practice. Practice what you're planning to say frequently. And a hint, attend one of those small group workshops that are going to be facilitated by Sophie Boisseret. And it's going to be actually quite helpful, because even if you've done this before, it doesn't mean that practice won't be helpful. And so you might want to recraft something that you've been saying in the same way for a long time, and you may want to do it a little differently. Or this might be your first time out, I would like to be able to practice a couple of different angles and different ways of approaching what I would like to say so that I have some more practice. And so again, practice makes perfect, or at least makes it really good. And the other one is missing your call to action. The ending. So in that 25 minutes, how much time are you going to leave to be able to make sure that you have a solid call to action and that you leave with the next steps versus running out of time and then doing something very quickly and not really being able to sort of what I call in my course, landing the plane. You have to land the plane and make sure that you have that call to action quite strongly in the flow of your conversation. And so how can they access you? What should they do next? How should they contact you? What things might you want to offer to them to entice them to have that connection after the 25 minutes? And so how are you going to land that conversation? And so that's your call to action, considering those pieces of the puzzle and also making sure that you give yourself that time, because sometimes in the excitement of the exchange, you run out of time, and then you actually don't have a very strong close. And that close is going to be one of the keys to this event. And the other one is demographic analysis. And so here I'm going to be moving into flash analysis. What is the flash analysis and why would I want to do it? But before I do that, I think I'm going to stop and just ask if there's any questions, because what I've said just previously, many people might say, oh, I've already heard that and I already know how to do that. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them. Or if there's something specific in your case that you like to get some feedback, then that's also an opportunity to place that in the chat. So I'm going to pause for a moment and say, is there any questions? And Kate, do you see anything? I don't see anything. So just checking with you.
Nope. Oh, someone's writing.
Okay, someone's writing. So then I'll pause. Okay for the moment. Thank you.
Any hint to project more confidence?
Okay. To project more confidence. Okay, so I will go back to the practice, because the practice does help you feel super comfortable, and therefore you've sort of done it a couple of times. I would honestly say that confidence, sometimes the first 5 minutes is uncomfortable, but it's knowing how to move through that uncomfortable space that also helps you get that confidence. And so maybe practicing with other people having this conversation and having them do something to throw you off, like ask you a hard question or stand up and sit down. These are the kinds of things that trigger individuals, makes you kind of get off your track. And so the confidence is being able to stay on track even if something strange goes wrong, like technical difficulty, and I still need to present. And so the confidence part comes a little bit with this practice, I would definitely say. But also, how comfortable are you in the sentences that you've chosen, the subject, the way in which you're going to speak? And again, the reason why I say practice is because as you design what you want to say, it's the delivery of that. It might look really great on paper, but then when you try to say it, it doesn't really work. That's also the other thing, is written language is not the same as speaking language. And so what kind of language is most comfortable for you when you're speaking? And that's something that you want to also consider, how you develop your conversational pitch, I might call it. And so this is just one of the ideas that I have. Are there any other questions? I think I see them, but would you mind, Kate, telling me what's there?
Yeah, so Laurent asked a very good question, and he said that he's sometimes finds it difficult to listen rather than talk when the person in front is more distant or less engaged. And do you have any advice for kind of, I guess, captivating the attention and how to still push them to speak? Maybe putting words in your mouth long, but like, I think, I think maybe that's a really good question as well.
Right. So I guess the question would be is if the person in front of you is actually quite not reticent, but is just shopping. I call it window shopping. So there's individuals who just do what I call window shopping. It just means that I'm here to listen to you. I'm kind of not super deciding on you or not. And so I'm just getting data. And there are going to be people who window shop. And so to know that they window shop is just to answer their questions in a comfortable, casual way, ask questions of them, take the information that they give you, and then move from there. There are going to be people who are going to be super engaged and other people who are window shopping. And you just kind of know it in front of you and go, okay, window shopper. And so how might I provide you with the information that you're looking for? What are you comparing us to? What are the other, what you're comparing us to? That's always a great question to ask. And also you can, for someone who isn't really engaged, ask them what they're looking for. That's a wonderful question to ask. What are you looking for? What are you trying to solve? What questions might you have for me before, and then see what comes at the beginning. And sometimes you can build much more engaging conversation after that because you started by asking questions, not just the hello and how are you, but also what are you looking for? What is your, and also if you have already done your homework on the person, you can mention something. This is also captivating to someone who didn't know that you've done their homework. And you say, oh, I noticed that such and such and such and such. And I was wondering if this is why you're here. That is also a great starter to kind of go, oh, they're paying attention. And it might actually create a dynamic where they're more interested in talking. So this is just a couple of ideas. Was there another question after that?
It doesn't look like it. It looks like Lauren was happy with your advice.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, I'm going to get into a little bit of thinking about who is in front of you. This is what I'm talking about right now, which is the audience analysis. So this idea of who's in front of you. Is it the shopper? Is it the person who's super engaged? Do they already have an idea in their mind? Or are they just looking for ideas? See, all of this sort of changes the way an individual might engage with you. And so I'm going to be highlighting some of the areas that you see on this image. You're not going to do all of those, but there's 3 that are super key. Some you can do in advance, but other things you might be able to do right in front of you by asking some questions. First of all, who are you speaking to? And what are their individual or group characteristics if you're speaking to a group? That means what profession are they? In other words, the role, the responsibilities, which angle are they coming at this question? Are they homogeneous, meaning that in this meeting, there might be an assumption that everybody is sort of the same profile, but you don't really know unless either you do your homework or either you ask some questions at the beginning to be able to assess, is it an engineer in front of me? Is it someone who's in product development? Is it someone, because each one of those individuals has a different issue, question that they're trying to solve. Each one might be asking or coming at coming at the situation a little bit differently, different perspective. And so not to think they're homogeneous is very important, is to also think who different might be in front of me, their education level. Now, here we might not be as concerned, but at the same time, what type of education have they had? Again, super, super technical, or is it much broader? And so that also might change how you approach this individual in front of you. And are they similar or different than you? Because sometimes we make the assumption that our language is understood by the person in front of me, but it might not be. That's an assumption. So are you different? Meaning, are you much more technical than the person that is in front of you? Then you may need to adjust how you present what you're going to present, which is the reason why practice is helpful, because you can have a technical kind of avenue conversation. You can have one that's much more product driven or collaboration driven, or whichever different paths that you feel is going to be helpful to have in your pocket. So that way, when you have that different person in front of you, you can pull out that conversational style a little bit easier. The other one is the psychographic or psychological analysis. Here, what you're asking is, what do they already know about your subject, your topic, your innovation, the area of expertise? What do they believe or think about that technology, industry, or area of focus? Do they have a belief about that? That also changes their filter when they're listening to what you have to say, do they already have a filter of, yeah, but I don't really think that this is a good idea of doing this technology? I mean, do they already have a negative in their head for whatever reason? Or are they super excited? Or are they ambivalent in the middle? So where are they? Specialized terminology, concepts and processes and tools, the values of their organization, and what problems do they have are all the kinds of things that fall under psychographic. What kind of terminology is going to be very distant to them or linked to them automatically because you said a word which is in their world. And when you do that, it makes an automatic connection. When you use language that is outside of their world or a little bit harder for them to understand, then they feel more distant, and then they're not so engaged, and it takes a little bit of time to warm up. So this is actually quite important, this language choice and angling your language. The values of their organization or the individual. Why? What are they trying to achieve, and what do they believe? Do you know this? Do you express this in some way in which connects your technology or your innovation to what they are trying to achieve? And again, what problems do they have? So some of this you can find out right in the moment by asking questions. Some of this is, again, homework that you might do in advance. The other one is situational context analysis. Now, there's a specific context that's going to happen for this event. You know that you're time constrained. It's not all day. And there's a lot of people who are going to be seeing a lot of people. It is actually quite intense. It can be very tiring. And for some people, it can be actually quite overwhelming. So the question that you might want to ask yourself are a few of these. Where are you? Meaning, do you have a window? Where are you located in the building? Are you on the first floor? Where are you in the space? And that might actually impact how people feel when they are having this conversation with you. What obstacles or distractions exist? Maybe they're having to watch their phone because there's a very important thing that's happening and they keep apologizing for it. That's a distraction. Maybe there was something else that happened to them or to you. That's also a distraction. So what obstacles or distractions exist psychologically, situationally for them? Now, the last one, I'm going to challenge you to think about. What is the best medium to mix in a support based on the context where you are? Is it really a slide deck that you should be showing? Is it a video? Is it a demo? Or no mediums at all? Maybe it's just a pure conversation. Now, I've seen several of these types of events, and there's different ways to approach this, and so I'm going to give you some examples. There's a couple of people who knew that by after lunch, they stopped showing their slide deck. They showed video, and that's it, and they talked. Why? Because people were a little bit tired of seeing all the slide decks all day, and they were a little bit tired of talking. And so having a video that actually talked for you, showed images and things, and then you followed up with a direct conversation that had no slides, no follow-up, maybe a handout that you turned over back and forth like this, old school. Why? Because it's a little bit more relaxing. Because after an intensive day of slide, it might be pretty good to just go, it's nice to have a conversation with somebody and not be presented to again. So think about the time of day. What time of day is it? Are they fresh? Is this morning? Some people aren't fresh in the morning. They need 4 or 5 coffees. And so think about what you may want to do based on that as well. Now I'm going to stop here and just say, are there any questions about the 3 audience analysis pieces that I talked about? Demographic, psychographic, and situational. And I'll pause for a moment and see if anything shows up in chat. And let me know if there's any typing.
All right, someone started typing and seems to have stopped typing. A big question.
Oop. All right, I had a question about, I see it, pre-meeting prep. Do you recommend starting with written discussion before face-to-face meeting? Quite nostalgic for the Japanese way of practicing. Yes, and that is the reason why I like face-to-face business meetings that confirm pre-established hypotheses.
So maybe I should jump in here to explain the process of the meeting requests as well on the platform.
Because maybe there is a yes, go ahead.
So on the Minalogic business meeting platform, the idea for the meeting request is that there is a catalog of different participants, and all the participants can request meetings with each other. So if you think that you have something to say and you could be of interest for whichever company. So say, for example, you say Schneider Electric. I really have something that I can offer Schneider Electric. You click on their profile, you see who's present. And as Nada said, look at their profile. What's their job title? Do you think that's the right person to have opposite you? And then you can send a meeting request, and equally you can send an individual message that qualifies your request. And so I definitely recommend sending this little message as well to say, this is what I know how to do, and to adapt that message to every person that you're writing to. So it's super, super important to qualify and to get the maximum number of meetings set up before the actual day of the event. So this event is very much based on pre-qualified meetings. So the idea is that you know on the day of that the person opposite you is interested by what you have to say. So you only have that opportunity really to send one individual message. Obviously, do your homework, as Nada said. Maybe check them out on LinkedIn, see who they are, see what their history is, and then be able to get your meeting really prepared. And you know that you're meeting with this person. This is their background. Are they a technical guy? Are they a sales guy? Are they a buyer? And to make sure that you know who you have opposite you and that you're speaking their language and that you know how to speak to them. That would be my advice. I'm sure Nada has some other tips for you, but as I say, the platform, I guess Nada isn't so at ease with.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Were there any other questions? Just checking. I don't think so. All right. So then I'll move on. I'll move on to the next part. And so we've already done the flash analysis. We've talked about the idea of connecting and how to connect using data, emotions, etc. And what I want to do now is talk a little bit about what does it mean to have facilitating effective exchanges. Yes, I do see a comment, so I think I'll continue with this slide and then I'll address that, or we can address that after. Facilitating an effective exchange. Conversation, exchange, facilitation. Now, I specifically have chosen the word facilitation because I see conversation as co-creation. If you're just speaking in one direction, they're just an audience, they're listening. If they're window shopping, they take notes and they say thanks, and then they leave. But if it has been a pre-agreed upon meeting, then they are coming with some sort of interest. They wouldn't have said yes if they weren't interested in something that you said. So what is this that is interesting to them, and how can you link to that? This is the reason why I call conversations as co-creation. If you think about it not as sales pitch or not as trying to convince, because then that sends you down the tunnel of talking too much and not listening. If you think of it as co-creation, you're coming with something and I'm coming with something. So how can we build something together? And that building together comes through that exchange. It comes through knowing when to ask a question, knowing when to stop. Again, I'm going to point to practice, because knowing when to do this kind of modulation between saying something and stepping back, listening for a moment, asking a question, sitting back, listening for the response. You have to be comfortable and not pushing. And that actually takes a little bit of comfort level to do. Many people are focused on the pushing. And that's why I also call it the art of framing. It's framing the actual conversation. What is it that I'm trying to say? What are my end goals? What are the things that I really want to make sure that I convey? And then how can I, again, with this particular individual, make that connection? because each person and each frame is not going to be the same. It's sort of like different photos, different pictures, a painting versus photography. The frame around it is what enhances it. If you consider that framing as how do I enhance my conversation, then you actually take time to consider that framing and defining what it is that I want to do, as well as what I want to say. And I end with the asking questions. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. The questions bring out the other person. Now, earlier you asked, yeah, but what happens if you have someone who's not really engaged? Well, it may not be that they're interested in going, like what I say, tennis match with a question and having a long conversation. They may just want to be able to answer your question or to hear a really good response. Sometimes you can follow your response with a question, like you've given them some data points that they were curious about. You can always ask, has that answered the question that you have, or is there something else? Sometimes that triggers them to ask another question. And so for those people who are sort of really slow in responding to you, that's also something as well. Now, there is one element that I definitely wanted to highlight, which is that many times in the idea of planning for this type of event, you plan for your presentation from the beginning to the end. So you sort of do it like the squiggly line. You have the points that you want to talk about, you know what you want to emphasize, and here's my goal. But I say, build your story, reverse engineering, go backwards. What is the objective that you want to have with that person in that meeting before they go? Do you want to have a follow-up meeting with them? Do you want to set up a demo? Do you want to, what is your end goal? And now you need to go backwards and figure out, how can I lead them to that goal? I say reverse engineer it. You can also create slide decks, videos, combinations of many types of mediums that are chapters, meaning they talk about one particular element or frame a particular question, and you can pull these out like modular. You want to be able to have modular pieces that you can use. I think Lego, but it could be any other type of game where you want to be able to put the pieces together based on the person who's in front of you. So you want to be able to have multiple pieces. Why the practice? Because practicing pulling these pieces together and doing it on the fly. This person in front of you is a salesperson who is looking for this and wants to know these two questions. How are you going to answer it? And then you have 10 minutes to think about it, and then you have to come up with your answer. The more that you do that, the quicker it is for you to be able to find your chapters and to be able to put those pieces together in your presentations and in your conversations. Now, I'm going to have you do a very short exercise. And so you should have received in email the document that I mentioned to you earlier, and it would be this document here, the 3 Pillars of Persuasion. This is to help you with the exercise that you're about to do. There's a pitch preparation card. Now, I know that these aren't pitches. I know that you are going to be in conversation, but I liked the way that this card summarized a lot of this information. What I would like you to do right now on this webinar is to do a little bit of practice. On the prep card, there's the project, of course. There's the process or progress of it, your validation of it, and that just basically means I want you to tell them the state of where it is. What is your goal, your end goal? So I would like you to pick possibly a type of customer that might be coming to this event, and pick a goal that you have for yourself, for that individual or for that company, and consider what is your call to action that you might say at the very end. What might you talk about? And then the audience. The audience, of course, you have the profile, but think a little bit about the company. Think a little bit about the role or responsibility that that individual might have. So you could be using something that you've done in the past, or another organization that you've already worked with as an example for this exercise. Or you could decide that you actually want to try this exercise on someone new that you would actually like to be in front of during this event. Now, during the pitch, of course, you already know the duration. It's going to be limited, 25 minutes, I believe. But what is your tone? How are you approaching this conversation? What kind of language do you think you're going to want to use? Again, you're thinking about the person in front of you. Now, content, design, these are when you're thinking of the mediums. And so what are you thinking that you want to bring? Are you considering handouts? I call it old school. Are you only thinking slide deck? A combination of things. Maybe just consider what mediums might really help you convey what you're trying to say or show. Again, a demo might also be an opportunity as well. So you're going to use this for approximately, let's see, it's 9:40, so we still have some time. So you're going to use this for approximately 10 minutes. And then the idea was to have you exchange, but I know we can't put you in. But what I'm going to want to do is to have you put into the chat the things that you are starting to notice when you are working through this, and also questions that are starting to come up. Anything that you can't answer that I might be able to support you in doing. And so during this 10 minutes, it's a working time. And maybe I might say 15 minutes. And so right now it's 9:41. And so for 15 minutes, take some moment, create your first preparation card or pitch card for a company. Start to consider what it is that you would want to say, and look at the document that was emailed to you that includes some examples of the types of data that you might use, stories you might tell, ways to connect emotionally. Help you think about your pathways. How many pathways, I call it, or conversation angles might you want to create for yourself so that you can practice those? And so I'm going to give you about 15 minutes to do that. And then we're going to come back, and then I'm going to ask you in the chat, post your ideas, your questions, and also observations. What happened to you when you started to do that? Maybe you thought of something new that you would like to try. And so I'm going to give you some silence for a little bit of time, and then we will reconvene in this main session. Okay? Kate, is that good with you? I can keep my camera on, off.
Sure. I'll pause the recording. And we're away.
Okay, so I'm just going to answer a question that was posted with regards to the number 4 section, the pitch. All right, so content, design, and run through. What is the content that you're planning on including inside of whatever mediums? So many times you think slide deck, but you can talk about that I'm going to create a slide deck. What is going to be in it? What charts, data? Remember having different kinds of ways of relating to the individual. What order are you going to put them in? Is there going to be a particular storyline? We talked about going reverse engineering it and starting from the end goal. What are you trying to achieve? And then going backwards. And so what content would help you get to the goal that you have identified? So this is what content would be. Design, and design could be literally what is the design going to look like for, and I say slide deck, but it could also be anything else. Are you going to be literally, when you are doing these presentations, you could also think about your space. And sometimes people design their space, meaning that they have something behind them or that they bring a little dispo that stands up so that people can see this, and it's easy to show. And so it's also thinking ergonomically, user friendly. How are you going to engage with a person so that it's easy to move and to show? That's also a design process. That's an environmental design. So literally practicing with someone else for 25 minutes of doing the thing that you have in your mind. It's like theater and practicing on stage. It's literally this. And so Is it on the right? Do you have it below? Where is your computer? Are you just doing a screen? All of that. And so that's also design. So it's not only designing the mediums you're going to use, but also thinking about the environmental design that you're going to be facilitating in. And so that's going to be helpful. And the other one is run through. And run through, the check marks, as you see, there's 4 little boxes. And that actually means how many times have you practiced this? That's literally what the boxes are. It's to say, yes, I'm going to do this on this date. So you might put dates in here. Many people use it as a scheduling tool. So if I know the end date is X, this is the event, then I know that I want to do a run through at least 1 week before, at least 2 days before to warm up again. 3 weeks, we're at that point where you're going to start to need to design and also then practicing, which is the reason why the practice sessions are set up. And so that's what the boxes were for. You're very welcome. And again, if there's any questions as you were working on things, the to-do list could be kind of a long to-do list, but it does give you some action and some plans to put into place, some things to consider, proactively versus reacting. I've had many people in these types of conversation events where literally the design of what they planned to do was so difficult to do that it created a dynamic with the individuals in front of them, and it made them feel like they were not prepared. And that can work against you. And so this was also something to think about. All right. So we're getting to the point where we would open up the mic if anybody was kind of interested in telling us what kind of feedback that you got or any questions that you have. I see a question in the chat, so I can go ahead and respond to that, Kate.
Sure. I think, Laurent, are you happy to volunteer to come up on stage and to go through your preparation card as well? Don't want to put you on the spot. Excellent. Okay. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, so you should be designated now as a animateur, and you'll have the little box that comes up where you have the button with your microphone and your camera, which you can turn on.
There we go.
Yeah, perfect.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Naida. That's very interesting. Okay, where are my thoughts here? First, I had a question. In these kind of events, sometimes I think that 25 minutes is a bit long. So depending on the time of the day, if I'm coming in the afternoon, I would be much tempted to say, well, look, I suppose you're tired, so let's do 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you'll tell me if you're interested to carry on for longer. And this is kind of thing I tend to practice because that gives a validation, in the middle of the meeting, whether the person is still interested to carry on.
So there's a couple of things that I would say as observations of what you've just said. So can you repeat the sentence that you used when you were starting it to shorten it? What was the sentence that you said?
I appreciate that you've been through several meetings like this one for the beginning of the day. So what I would like to do is let's stop for 10 minutes so that I can give you a breath sometimes. And if you're interested after 10 minutes to carry on, it will be a pleasure.
Yes. So that's a lovely opportunity to give the appetizer. And then say, if you're interested in continuing the meal, you can stay. And so that's actually a lovely way of doing it. The only thing I noticed in the first time that you said it, which you didn't say this time, was that you used, I think, the words, I know that you might be tired.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So that was a little flag for me, because people actually, when they hear it, they're then it. Like when I say, don't think of an elephant.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So it's just also watching out to not invite tiredness. And so the second way you said it, I can understand that it's been, you know, a long morning, and so I want to think about that. That's the morning is long, but you're not tired.
Okay, so a word of caution. Yes. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So that was good. But I like the idea of the 10 minutes and breaking it up into a smaller piece. The only challenge is that it also gives them an opportunity to assume that they've listened to the most important pieces, like a trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, well, that was enough for me to know, when in fact, maybe the thing that you didn't say because you kept it at 10 minutes would have been the thing that would have kept them. So either that 10 minutes is very curated and you know exactly what you want to say in the 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then
All
that's
right.
okay.
Yes. Okay.
But it can backfire because it'll feel like, nah, when in fact you just didn't get there yet.
Okay. Yes. Oh, all right. Understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Also a risk of appearing like somebody who is less engaged than the others, that they want to go out after 10 minutes. Like, it's
because I can feel like, oh, you must be tired.
I'm the one who's tired. Okay.
You're a tired person, not me, really. So that could also work. So you can play with the time. Like you said, 10 minutes. The thing is, it's 25 minutes. If you said 15, that's a good chunk of it. So even just psychologically, it's like 9.99 is not 100. So if you said 15, it still feels like I've got 10 minutes. But it feels like it's a good amount. So you'd have to play with this a little bit.
Okay. Now coming on to the pitch preparation part. The thing with the service that we are offering is that it's complex to handle. A demo is always complex. So I want to speak more to the benefits side of the conversation rather than on the features side of the conversation. And the risk is that the conversation sometimes may be too abstract. So there's something that I would need to carefully monitor. My goal is to sign up the customer for a pilot program, because we still need, in terms of progress, we are very close to delivery. We have a product, we have assumptions. The assumptions, with my personal experience in the industry, are more advanced than the product. I mean, I think I have more validation than what the product is currently capable of offering. So the goal is to sign up the customer for a pilot program. So the call to action is to get the opportunity to meet the personnel facing the problem within their business, and to validate our assumptions would be the call to action.
So what do they get out of it?
What do they get out of it? Well, they get out of it the opportunity of being a first mover in spinning the product towards exactly what they need, because it is still flexible at that time, and they can be one of the first adopters.
So the what do I get out of it position is what is also a lead benefit.
Yes. Yeah. A lead
so
benefit.
The benefit that you were speaking about are benefits that you get out of me participating. But I want to know what I get out of it if I participate. Why would I want to participate, and what would drive me to say yes? And so this is from me, my benefit. Yeah. So it's almost like thinking, what are they going to get out of it? Why should they care? Why should they take the time?
Okay.
And that flips it a bit. And then if you can speak from that direction, you're starting to play my chords, and now I'm starting to go, there might be something there for me and us, or I could see that there could be some mutual benefit, because mutual benefit is good.
Okay. Mutual benefits. Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
And, yeah. Okay.
Very welcome. Thanks.
You want to speak up? I don't want to be a monopoly.
Yes.
I think maybe
a few.
Romain, so. Maybe would you be happy to go onto stage as well and to present? I think he tried to send us something in the chat, but I don't think it's gone through my side anyway.
Romain, you mean?
Do I need to relinquish the presentation something in the app, or you do that for us?
I'll do that for you.
Okay,
thanks very much, Laurent. Looking forward to seeing you in real life very soon.
Yes, me too. Bye.
Thank you.
So, Romain, would you like to to speak directly with Nida and get some feedback? Any other volunteers? Brave volunteers?
I see his message about that it's important to force oneself to engage in the preparation, and I would agree. This is also the reason why I thought that it might be a good idea during the session to actually have time to actually start working on it, because many times you will listen and have the ideas, and then the webinar's over, and then you wait until 2 days before to, what was that webinar to watch again if you didn't go to the practice. So this is also, I wanted to give you an opportunity to begin thinking about these elements and these things. So.
And then obviously as well, the goal for Thursday and Friday sessions with Sophia to have a half day to go over this again and again and again. I think the idea for her is to have three times for each participant to go over the pitch, and each time she sends you away with more feedback, and then you come back and she gives you advice to improve it again. So again, the sessions with Sophia.
I can move on to those slides if you'd like. I just wanted to check if there's anyone else who would like to either share your feedback from the preparation, or if you'd like to say anything before I move on to the next slide and end the session. So I don't see anything popping up. I see typing.
People are a little bit, Sebastian saying he needs to work on it a little bit more before presenting, which understandable as well.
Yes, okay. Well, I'll continue. So as you were speaking, the reason why I really wanted to get you started is that you can kind of see that there's lots of elements that you can think about. And I want to sort of thank Laurent, thank you, Laurent, for doing the exchange with me, because as you could see in my conversation with Laurent, something happened. I was listening to what he was saying, and then I made a few notes of the language, but then I also made some comments about the perspective of how you might speak to somebody. Now that comes because I'm exchanging with him. This is not something that is you by yourself kind of looking at a document, although the documents are very informative. So this is the reason why I'm going to say I highly, highly, highly recommend that you sign up for those workshops. And so I'm just going to ask you, it's in French, take a moment to look on the left. And this is a témoignage, or a statement from a past participant, just so that you can kind of get the sense of why you would want to do this in the first place. Really, it is the difference between sort of knowing what you're supposed to do versus knowing how to actually do what you want to do. It's this practice. I was asked earlier about confidence, and that confidence is definitely something that you're going to have the more comfortable with the thing you want to say, or also comfortable in pivoting when you hear something that someone says, and then you're able to quickly move into a different language space because you can pick up something from the other person. And this is part of the whole exchanging, and it's part of the whole practice. Now I can see Romain put a lot of information in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and scan that while you're looking at this slide, because I really would like you to highly consider signing up for those workshops. It really does help when you have someone in front of you who can give you this type of advice, or who can support you in designing or redesigning or asking questions about your goal, your objective, and then steering you towards a particular idea that maybe you may not have had on your own. And so what I want to do is, I gave you both seconds to read that quote, and I'm going to go ahead and move it to the next slide, which has all of the information about the dates and when it is happening. I understand, Kate, do you have the direct link that you can put into the chat so that everybody has that for signing up?
For the training sessions, of course, yeah, I'll put that in the link. And I just wanted to point out as well that Romain's message came through with his pitch. I think it was too long to come through straight away. I just wanted to highlight that for you. I don't know if you want to come back to that, or
yes,
I'm
looking at it. I'm looking at it now. When you do the as you do the link, I'll go ahead and read this Romain, and just ask, have a chance to read it. Decided to develop. Scale, okay. Right. So very similar to the comments that I gave earlier for your testing. What do they get out of it? What mutual benefit would they have? Can they learn something? This is also something that's super interesting about being part of beta testing or any type of testing for solutions. The individuals who participate also like to learn. Just like individuals who like to learn because they're curious, and just because this is one of the things that drive us is our curiosity. It's also an opportunity to pick up something new, to learn something before someone else. And so that's also a benefit that the individual gets for participating. The organization gets an opportunity, again, to shape or to inform or to learn something before everybody else does as well. But they also have a chance to engage possibly at a much deeper level. And so the idea of learning something, picking up something, what new things might they learn from the participation or the engagement with you? This is also a benefit that is a soft benefit, but also is an attractive benefit for the person or for the people that they may invite to be part of it if it's not the individual who's in front of you. So that's also something as well. I wasn't sure, Roma, if you wanted to have any other feedback, but I enjoyed what you have written and sent, and it seems like you're on your way. It was just thinking about, okay, but then what would I say and the angle that I'm going to say it in? But I can see that it's in progress. And so if there is something specific that you would like me to address, please let me know either in the chat, and that way I can at least make sure that I answer any specific questions out of what you said. Oh, and here's the conclusion. Oh, it feels like it's a series.
A little bit of a delay as well. Romain, if you don't mind, I'm going to change you into being a no, I can't. Why can't I do that? I'm gonna try and turn you into the animateur. So Romain, I've tried to turn you into animateur, so you should now have access to your video and your microphone if you want to talk directly to us.
Yes, that'd be great. Okay. Especially if I want to answer any other questions.
Yeah. There we go.
Hello.
Hello. No, that's
hi.
That was really very interesting. In fact, what's fun is that I asked at the beginning of the presentation the question about how to prepare, and I realized, thanks to your presentation, that actually I thought I prepared carefully the meetings, although your methodology is way more efficient than the way I usually do. Usually I take many time looking at the LinkedIn profile of people I want to see. I try to find many information, and I underinvest in the preparation of the speech I want to send to them. So it was a really interesting way of working it in 15 minutes.
Right, and it's the opposite direction, I call it, because it's that reverse engineering, right? Because you, as you said, you spend so much time thinking of the audience, but then you don't have prepared what you want to say, and then you get there, you're like this, and then it doesn't come out the way you wanted, and then they leave, and because that part wasn't done. And so I start by that. And then I say, but then who's in front of me, right? So that's the reason why having several different ones is really helpful. Thinking about the audience or individual and then making that connection with them. It makes it actually much more relevant to them and to that moment with that person. So thank you very much for that. And are you going to sign up for one of these practices? Because I highly recommend them.
Yeah, I will definitely ask internally about this this option, because it would make a lot of sense, I think, for my job, and also it's the Minalogic. I think it's the right ecosystem of companies we are willing to develop relation with.
So I know that the link is in the chat. It's a little bit higher than your message, and so yes, everybody, I encourage you to go ahead and copy paste or go ahead and click on that link and see what is available based on your schedule, because it is an opportunity to really practice what you have imagined. It's like any presentation is great on paper, but then when you say it, you're like, oh, that sounds really funny, or that's too long to say. Or now that I say that, it's actually confusing because it looks great when you write it. So this is also part of the practice. So thank you very much for having a short conversation with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Romain. I'm going to turn you back into a participant. Okay. So,
all right, and then for myself, that was the last slide. I was going to end with a thank you, so I'll just do the quick thank you, just to say that I appreciated everybody's time, and thank you for listening. And I'm hoping that this was helpful, nice start to the process, a way to get a little bit of food for thought and a different approach to preparing. We'll go back to the other slide, which is to say, but then the next step is to practice. And the practice gives that comfort. The practice gives you variety. The practice gives you an opportunity to target. And so I can even more highly encourage you to consider going ahead and signing up for one of those workshops. And Kate, I'll send it back to you.
So yeah, thanks very much, Nada. Great presentations, lots of useful hints and tips, and yeah, I think everyone's going away with a little bit of homework to do, and to make sure that these B2B meetings are prepared as well as possible. Again, to say thank you to the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region, who has financed Nada's intervention today and is also co-financing the sessions, the individual sessions on Thursday and Friday. So if you want to sign up to those sessions, they're €125 per person, and that's actually funded at 50% by the region as well for those sessions. So if you're not signed up already, as we said, encourage you to do so. You'll get a lot of individual feedback and really be prepared as you possibly can be for your B2B meetings. And also, if some of you aren't yet signed up for the MBM, there's also still time. So online or in person in Grenoble on May 31st. And we'd be delighted to have you here and to see you put into practice what you've learned today. So thanks very much. We'll send you, as I say, the recording and the slides. And also, again, in the email, the link to sign up for the sessions on Thursday and Fridays. Thanks very much, everybody.
And just one last thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good luck with your conversations.
Yeah, homework. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.